Raful and Helen were married in 1919. Helen came from a very, very wealthy family. Her family owned most of the town that they lived in. They lost everything in World War I. She had to adjust to her new station in life, so when her husband asked that they move to America in 1921, she didn't want to leave, and he understood why. She was a kind and loving mother, and was very worried and stressed about her family and what would become of them. The night before the family was taken from their home for their 10-day trip in a boxcar to Auschwitz, she stayed up all night preparing cookies and hard breads for each member of the family to have. This was the only food they had on this dreadful trip. She perished in the gas chambers of Auschwitz. Hannah Schandl was my mother's older sister. She was engaged to be married and was learning to make men's shirts. Hannah and my mother stayed together as they were moved from one concentration camp to another because they kept the fact that they were sisters a secret. Their job was to work on the railroad track. Hannah became ill and unable to work. My mother risked her life stealing carrots when she worked in the kitchen to give it to her sister. Hannah asked my mother to leave her when they were forced to move from one camp to another, but my mother said that she would never do that. At the close of the war, when they were in tow bugs fleeing the Allies, my mother knew that Hannah was starving to death. On the boat, my mother was able to get a few scraps of potatoes, which she gave to Hannah. That little bit of food gave her the strength to die. Yitzhak Shmuel was my mother's younger brother. His name is not on the wall because he survived the war, but I want to speak about him also. He was separated from Hannah and my mother when they arrived at Auschwitz. She was able to see him once when they first arrived, so he knew that Hannah and my mother were alive. She had no contact with him until after the war. When he found out, he had returned home to their hometown in Romania as her father had instructed. When my mother found out that he had returned there, she got a message to him, and he came to her. He told her that there was nothing left in their hometown and that there was no reason for her to go back there, so she never did. Yitzhak went to Israel. He married and had 2 sons. While he was in the camp, he contracted an illness that plagued him the rest of his life. He died in the 1960s of this illness. My mother had a younger brother, Usher, and a younger sister, Edith. They were about 10 years younger than my mother. They were too young to work in the concentration camp. They perished in gas chambers with my grandparents. My mother said many times during those years of anti-Semitism prior to them being taken from their home, the happiest time was when the family was together. Their only source of fun outside of their home was the time they spent in temple. They were a loving, close, religious family. My mother never mentioned her family's names without following it with, "May he or she rest in peace." So I end by saying that I love and I miss my mother, and may she rest in peace.
Thank you, Anita, for sharing a little bit of the stories of those relatives of yours whose names are on the monument. Now we will light candles in memory of our dear ones who represent the 6 million, led by Irina and Tim Korshin.
Hannah Rosenthal, Nathan Rosenthal, Mina Rosenthal, Tony Hill. Rosa Weiss, Water Weiss, Bertha Lund, Sally Lund, Leo Weiss, Wilhelm Weissler, Leah Sly Rubenthal, Albert Klein, Frida Klein, Paul Schuey, Matilda M. Schuey.
Abraham Winmore, Gertrude H. Winmore, Ruth M. Winmore, Joseph Wolf, Clara Wolf, Albert Kleiman, Colleen Kleiman, Menachem Zinnier, Shayna Zinnier, Thor Zinnier, Rika Zinnier, Zolofa L. Zinnier, Abraham J. Zinnier, Joseph L. Zinnier, Raphael Zinnier, Kayla Zinnier, Esther Jacob Zinnier, Salomon Drexel, Regina.
The El Mole Rachamim can be found on the back of this first page at the top, also with the English interpretive translation. El Mole Rachamim Shochein Bamaromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utaharim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim Et Nishmot Kol Acheinu B'nei Yisrael Anashim Nashim V'tav Shenehergu V'shenitbechu V'shenisrefu V'shenechneku Bekan Eden Tehi Menuchatam Ana Ba'al Harachamim Hastireim B'Seiter Kenafecha Leolamim Utzeror Vitzror HaChayim Et Nishmotehem Adonai Hu Nachalatam V'yanuchu V'shalom Al Mishkavotehem